Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am the real Manos.
Manos is filling in for Vince today. Manos, today we're going to be talking about Batman.
Yay! He's a character I enjoy.
Today's question is, does Batman belong in the DCU/JLA? And that question comes from Excelsior Production 7. He footnotes that by saying, A, he has no powers, yet he fights alongside, air quote, gods, and B, Batman stories are often drowned in realism and darkness, unlike most DC stories. What do you think, Manos?
I think he fits in. The end.
Really?
I do. I've been a big proponent of this. As a Batman fan, I've often heard this question brought up, which is actually why that's one of the reasons why I wanted to definitely guest on this one. And there's certain characters, there's certain superheroes, which you can place into any type of genre of a story, and Batman is definitely one of those. Where you can put Batman in a crime drama story, a horror story, a really fantastic, strange superhero story, and it all works. Why? Because of his costume? I don't know. But he has... Maybe the costume actually is kind of a weird way to transcend, because he looks like a superhero. Therefore, you can, I don't know, sort of buy him in certain situations. And also, one of the things I always think about is when you go back to the origins of the characters, Batman was created to be the yin to Superman's yang. DC wanted another superhero character. So Bob Kane and company got together and looked at Superman and said, okay, what isn't Superman? And, he's kind of like bright and hopeful, and Batman's going to be kind of looking dark and sinister, and Superman doesn't have a mask, and Batman will have a mask. And one of the big things was probably, when I hear about them talk about this, is Superman, of course, has all these great powers, even back in 1940 or 39. So that was one of the things. They wanted Batman to be the opposite of that, where he is the greatest athlete, the smartest detective. And that's one of the things I like so much about Batman is he belongs in this world because he knows how it operates. He's smart enough to combat superheroes much more powerful than he is. Because he realizes that these superheroes and supervillains that he comes across on a daily basis are people inside of these superpowers. And that's what he usually does. He combats the weakness, the mental weakness of any kind of character. Some of these characters, traditionally are very easy to twist around your little finger if you manipulate them correctly. Which is why I think he does so well. And
I really like that point. I also like the fact that you said that that Batman was deliberately supposed to be the opposite of Superman, because I would say that by definition, and you're right, and that being the case, the one thing that they both have to have in common is that they're both larger than life.
Yes.
And so even though Batman doesn't have superpowers like Superman does, and you mentioned that the costume has something to do with this. Batman does have superpowers, even though he doesn't have superpowers.
Yeah, I mean,
if that makes sense, in a lot of ways. Batman is not a person who could exist in the real world. Not really. I mean, what makes him somebody that people seem to identify with more often is the fact that we feel like we can more easily put ourselves in his shoes because he doesn't have powers and he's not an alien. But even Christopher Nolan's Batman is not somebody who could really necessarily actually exist in the real world.
Yeah, he would.
They are larger than life characters.
Yeah, if somebody
James Bond could not exist in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody tried to do what let's say specifically the Christopher Nolan Batman, he would flame out very early on because of just all the requirements. You're right. I mean, it takes an army to do what Batman does as a single person.
And what makes him credible in his universe, of course, is his psychology. The idea being that this is not necessarily somebody who could actually really exist in the real world, but he's so driven that we buy it. At least when he's written correctly, we buy it. I don't know. one of the things that has sometimes in the past made it seem like Batman doesn't necessarily fit in with some of these more cosmic ideas is simply that you're right that that Batman as a character seems to mesh in all these different places, but he feels like different characters sometimes. Mm-hmm. in different places. And of course, I mean, like, we could lay out a laundry list of all the different Batmans that there are, and I don't think you would even begin to argue that there's a huge difference between, say, the Justice League Batman versus, the Super Friends Batman.
Yeah.
They're different characters, they're different people. And so the question then becomes, is Batman immediately a different character simply because he's taken out of Gotham City and put in space, say, put with the Justice League on a more giant adventure, even simply just he fights during the day as opposed to at night. And I would say that that's not always true. It is sometimes true, but it's impressive that how, like, Bruce Timm and his team were able to take the same character in Batman in the Animated Series, put him in Justice League, make him fight sometimes during the daytime, but he's still very much the same character.
Yes, I mean, you can go back, I mean, just for a fun experiment, like, pick a episode of the original Batman animated series, and pick specifically one of the gangster episodes. One of the ones without supervillains in it, like maybe the Crime Alley episode, I think might be an example, or POV, and then go back and watch
or even
fantastic
Phantasm
Justice League episodes.
Yeah,
like the first Hawkman episode or something, or the Child's Play episode, or just something really, really fantastic that he had to just, or the big Nanobot episode, or something like that. I think he is. I mean, it just comes into play about Bruce Wayne is a jack of all trades, and what he brings to the table is his understanding of. This actually gets said a lot about the Joker, but he has to play to, I don't know, I guess I'm turning this into sort of a metaphor of a performer, but he's knowing his audience in this, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Joker is a performer.
Yeah, he is and, Batman is a performer too. And, he knows what's going to work with, some, drug dealers. And he knows what's going to work against Darkseid.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And that's one of the things I love about Batman. I don't even understand why people sometimes have a problem with the variety of a character, frankly. I think that opens up a character. I mean, look at Batman. I mean, he has, like, for the new reboot, he's got, 42, 67 new books.
No, I think it's closer to 105, actually.
Yeah, as opposed to some of these other characters who are more pigeonholed in their kind of story genres.
Right.
There's only one Captain Atom book that's coming out.
And there never used to be one.
Yeah, that's right. And
well, and Manos, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think a lot of people would say that that's oversaturation, that there's too many Bat books.
Well,
that Batman has kind of taken over the DCU, and there's a lot more to the DCU than Batman. I mean, like, out of 52 books, he really does have at least a dozen.
Yeah. Well, that's potentially another subject, but it does speak volumes that he can continue to maintain these books, even if
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even if I do agree as a Batman fan, there's a lot of Batman books.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's irritating, if nothing else, for simply the fact that there are other characters I want to read about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost a good problem to have in a way, because the thing is, and I know this is somewhat off topic, but as a fan of Batman, if I'm complaining that I have to air quotes buy a dozen Batman books, I would only be complaining about that because they're all good and I want them all.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good problem to have, right? Like I don't think it's oversaturation if they're all good. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they are all good necessarily. I'm saying that there have been times in the past where there were 6, 7 Batman books I wanted because they were all good.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
That means that there's still more to do with these characters. It also means that there are a lot of good characters spawned off of Batman and spawned off of Gotham City.
Yeah, like the Catwoman book, the Batwoman, the Batgirl books.
We're calling all those Bat books, but they're not all about Batman.
Yeah.
and they explore different themes. Birds of Prey is not really a Bat. I mean, it is a Bat book, but it's not a Bat book.
Yeah, I usually consider it a spin-off title.
Yeah, it is that, but I mean, like, it covers different themes.
Mm-hmm. Although, I don't know, would you say the new Birds of Prey book is a Bat book now?
Not really.
Because Barbara Gordon's not in it.
Huntress isn't in it.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Huntress is
I think Black Canary's there, but there's no Huntress.
All right. Well, Poison Ivy is in it.
Is she?
Actually, I don't know.
I was going to say,
that's Poison Ivy in the book.
I don't think she's in. There's some character I'd never heard of who's in it.
I think. Oh, maybe that's Rose and Thorn or something like that.
I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah. I mean, like, but two of the three characters that I always think of from Birds of Prey aren't in that book. Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly. Sorry if I messed something up there. But I'm pretty sure that Huntress is not in that book.
I don't think she is. No, actually, when they first made the announcement, she was one of the characters that was missing.
And if I'm correct, Black Canary is not initially a Batman character.
It's funny. She fits into that universe, but she's not primarily.
But I mean, like, where did she premiere?
JSA, actually.
Okay, but see, that's what I mean, is that you don't have to have Batman to have Black Canary.
Yeah, Black Canary is one of. I tend to consider Black Canary sort of a DCU character who floats a lot. I mean, she's in Justice League or. JSA,
she has so much to do with Batman, but then she has so much to do with Green Arrow. Yeah,
Green Arrow. And you can fit her into the Batman universe too.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We're done.
Good night, everybody.
Well, let me go back to my point about how there are so many different Batman characters or so many different ways to do Batman, because I think that because I've heard a lot of people make this argument that Batman makes no sense on the Justice League. He doesn't have superpowers. Why, if you're fighting off a giant global threat from space aliens or whatever, would you need Batman? And I think that, like everything else, and this is my cop-out answer to everything, it all depends on who's writing and how they're writing it. Because that is potentially sometimes a problem if Batman is solving problems in ways that are too easy. And I can't think of any good examples off the top of my head, but what I mean is people have sometimes complained that Batman is able to too easily pull, red herrings out of his hat. And you know what I mean? Like he pulls a magical plot device out of his utility belt and he solves every situation. Yeah. And then you look at something like, Batman Brave and the Bold, where that is true and it's still awesome. So, like, it's really interesting.
Well, it's to quote the Batman Brave and the Bold series, I remember Aquaman proclaiming, "He's Batman!" And that's the thing.
Some fans hate that, though, as an explanation, where they're like, yeah, but just because he's Batman doesn't mean he's awesome.
Well, sorry. That's how it
goes.
And
see, I don't know, that's kind of where I am too. So I mean, like, I guess it would be easy to just peg you and I as Batman fanboys, but like, why do we love him so much?
Well,
you have to be able to come out and answer that question.
Here's going back to your original question of how he fits into Justice League.
Right.
Batman is the smartest man in the room, and while Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, they're all really smart characters. They have their experiences. He's the one he can come at a problem at several different angles. And while they're taking the brunt of the fight, he can actually stand back in some cases and attack the problem in a different way. I've seen him do this in a number of Justice League stories. I remember one of the first Justice League comics I bought as a kid. It was written by Jerry Conway, where it was involving these I think these sun creatures. I got to go back and read it. And they're attacking the Earth, and they're beating the Justice League and the Earth's defenses all up. And Batman is the one who is completely off the radar, investigating it on his own, and is able to figure out a scientific way to beat the problem, while everyone else is trying to get in a fist fight with these monsters. And that's one of the ways that he works, specifically in the Justice League. Is he approaches the problems quite often in a different way. He knows he can't actually get in a punch and match with Doomsday, but he can maybe find out how scientifically to beat him. The old prep time argument, which a lot of fans say.
Yeah, he's more of a secret weapon than a frontliner. Excelsior Production 7 had kind of a PS question, which I think goes along with this, where he said, does Batman? It actually says the whole Bat family, but does Batman work in today's continuity as a loner? And it's interesting that you mentioned what you just said, because he's part of the Justice League, but he's still a loner all at the same time.
Yeah, he's that guy who at the party is back in the kitchen with his drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Not talking to anybody.
And fans complain about this all the time too, where they're like, Batman spent all that time saying, "Oh, I won't be part of the Justice League. I'm a loner. I'm by myself." And then he always ends up going with the Justice League.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's funny. It's worth making fun of. I'll give it that. There are definitely stories where that's amusing. But let's remember that that's been Batman's mantra since the 40s, right?
Yes.
I'm a loner. I don't work with anybody. I have a kid sidekick.
Okay, I have 2 kid sidekicks.
Okay, I have an entire I have a Bat. Superman doesn't have a Superman family. Okay, Superman does have a Superman family, but I mean, like, not as much so as Batman, right? Like, Batman has a Bat family, and he's a loner. I mean, this is okay. Whether it's consistent or not, whether it makes sense or not, it's consistent.
It is.
Batman not being a team player. But having a sidekick is the exact same problem as Batman not having a team, being a team player and joining the Justice League. Like if you don't like Batman in the Justice League, you can't be okay with him having sidekicks.
I will make the deflecting argument that Wolverine is actually worse about this.
Wolverine is much worse.
He constantly goes, "I'm a loner," but yet he's on every team in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. And often these days ends up leading the X-Men.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he really is a loner, because like Wolverine, he was invented as kind of the consummate loner, right? Like he runs off and never is heard from again until he suddenly shows up again. Everything is on his terms.
Yeah.
And everything is kind of on Batman's terms also, but the difference between Batman and Wolverine is that Wolverine runs off to find out stuff about his own problems.
Yeah.
Batman runs off to fix a problem that everybody else is involved in. He just conveniently doesn't tell anybody what he's doing because if they know, it'll take him longer for it to finish it. That's Batman's thing, is that he has kind of that ultimate response of, well, if you can't get it done by somebody else, you better do it yourself. Mm-hmm. He's always been that way.
I remember in the 90s. The Batman editorial staff actually resisted him joining the Justice League.
Yeah, but in the 90s, the Justice League didn't have any characters anybody had heard of.
That's true. And when Grant Morrison was putting together, the beginnings of, the Justice League, the Classic 7.
Right.
The editorial staff was did fight that, actually, because...
Really?
They did. And that was actually probably the most... political wrangling he had to do was to get any, and his solution was to write the perfect Batman and to figure out how to just set him in that universe in a believable way, and as long as he's got this more realistic thing he deals with in Gotham, but these are for big problems. And he was able to pull it off very well, and even play that up, like in the first story arc where those aliens come down, the White Martians.
Oh yeah.
One of the things I love about it as a Bat fan is the White Martians completely underestimate Batman in that story,
and that's why he's able to beat them regardless of superpowers.
Exactly. I remember their leader screaming that they had to send 2 of their people to go get him. Because he's just human.
Yeah, right.
And then there's that great panel of Superman listening, and he's all chained up, and he's suddenly smiling because he knows he's not really just human.
See, that's really interesting. Wouldn't you become more complacent if you had superpowers?
That's true, and I do
think
that...
Or wouldn't it be likely that you would? It would be so easy to just fall back on physicality and not brains if you had all the abilities of, say, Superman.
Exactly. And if you notice, a lot of the superpowered heroes aren't supposed to be real, like, skilled fighters. They're kind of more brawlers.
Yeah, and they don't have to be.
And,
because they essentially have a cheat. They have a cheat.
Mm-hmm. And they sort of, depend on that. Batman, of course, is running around with, gods. And so what I think it's interesting.
Well, why do we have so many? Let me say this. I'm sorry. Let me say this real quick. Why do we have so many stories, really, for every superpowered character, where they lose their superpowers and we have to see how they cope with that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we find that interesting because we add this extra human layer to them where we have to. I mean, hell, it happened in Smallville a bazillion times, where they kept falling back on that. Where it's like, well, if you're always falling back on your super strength or whatever, then when you lose that, what do you have? We never, that I can think of, or very rarely, have had stories where Batman loses his intelligence.
You know what?
Because what else would he have to fall back on?
I know, he'd be kind of in trouble. If
he'd be boring if nothing else.
Yeah, that's true. He would be much less interesting. Yeah, I mean, to use a real world example, the political strategist Karl Rove, who works for the Republicans, he has been. I've heard some interesting critiques on how he operates during elections, and what he does is he can actually, once he gets involved in a campaign, he will figure out how to attack the opponent on their strengths. And so what do they got to fall back on? Their weaknesses?
Yeah.
Because everybody will go normally for their weakness, and Batman does that a lot. But I mean, Batman can, even like the kryptonite ring, and there's that classic Tower of Babel story where he had all these plots to take down, the other Justice League members, going after their strengths. I mean, he's definitely, and this is also the gift of being written by thousands of people.
Right.
This is one man who thinks like 1,000 writers.
Yeah.
And so, he goes about, all these different methods, instead of just one. So that's why I always think he fits in.
Yeah, where I'm ultimately going to fall down on this is I agree with you. He fits. I would also say that there are times where one kind of Batman at the very same point in time in comics feels very different than the other kind of Batman. I do think this happens sometimes, but it's because we've got a lot of different writers writing them. I feel like if you had the really dark kind of really brooding Batman that we had during, say, No Man's Land, where he was like gone for a while and then came back, and then we took that guy and put him on the Justice League, he probably would be written a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Batman is not the only character that happens with. If you look at the way Scott Snyder was writing Dick Grayson in the Batsuit and Detective versus how everybody else was writing Dick Grayson when he was in the Batsuit, it's night and day. He's a different character.
And a whole bunch of characters, go through that. I mean, let's see, Wonder Woman can either be like a real like Princess of Hope.
Right.
And a real goody-goody, and then be like a real like savage warrior, depending on the story.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman too. And I've seen it's the thing about having so many different writers over decades, and specifically with Batman, who's so popular. So there's so many people working on. We talked about the ongoing series, but there's also plenty of mini series and one shots.
Right. Well, and I also think that it's not a bad thing that we have so many different interpretations of different characters, but especially Batman, because his psychology is so interesting that there are a lot of different ways for people to interpret it. And I don't think it's bad that we have different conflicting interpretations of what Batman is and should be. And I think it would be silly to say that there's only one good way to do Batman.
No, that would be naive.
And I mean, because I love a sillier Batman and I love a darker Batman. I think there's room for both.
And that's why it always works. That's why when Brave and the Bold first premiered, I remember some fans balking at that.
I kind of did the first time I saw it because I didn't trust it.
And my first reaction
was awesome.
Well, my first reaction was, well, we had the definitive dark Batman and the Bruce Timm series.
Why would we keep trying to? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Jeff Mazzuta sort of did that too, except maybe with more like fast-paced adventures, but kind of the same thing. And
what are you talking about there?
What's that?
What series are you talking about?
The Batman.
Oh, see, I didn't like the Batman.
Yeah, but that's a taste issue. The fact is, he sort of went that method as well. Then of course we have the Christopher Nolan darker movies.
Right.
So where else are you going to go with the new series? Well, they went lighter, and it's just as valid. Adam West Batman is just as valid as Frank Miller Batman.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get lots of comments about that, but I agree with you.
Yeah. Hey, and that's somebody I prefer the Frank Miller. I prefer the dark, brooding Batman. But you know what? I can't sit here and go, that's the only Batman. That's ridiculous. I think that's
well, 70 years of history. I mean, there isn't one version of Superman either.
Yeah.
And once again, I think it's important to reemphasize the point that these are larger than life characters, and they're meant to be. I don't want to say archetypes, but I mean they're certainly legendary characters.
Yeah.
And how many different writers and or at least bards lent their voices to the ancient heroes of Greece and Rome.
Oh, I know.
I mean, how many different interpretations do we have of those characters?
Mm-hmm. And I remember Denny O'Neil talking about that when they killed off Jason Todd, that he realized that they had kind of gone off from doing comic books as a job to realizing that they have gone and created folklore, American folklore, and legends that were real people to some. And that's it's just, I don't know, it's just a natural evolution.
Well, Manos, why don't we go ahead and go into rants?
Sure.
And why don't you go first?
All right. I'm a big fan of the horror film thing, if you hadn't guessed. And I am a big, I'm more of a vampire guy, and I love the 80s film Fright Night. And the recent remake had just come out. I still haven't seen it. I haven't been able to get to it. But of course, it hasn't been doing too well if you check IMDb. And I've been reading several very good reviews of the film. What I keep going back to is the marketing of the film, and I watch like the trailers and the TV ads for it, and there is barely any sign of David Tennant in them. And I just have to look at these, and I wonder why. Why you have Doctor Who in your movie, and you don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, Doctor Who has never been more popular in this country, and David Tennant is... I mean, he is a geek hero. Why downplay his appearance in this film? And also playing a popular character. Anybody who's seen the original Night Fright will remember Peter Vincent as played by Roddy McDowall. I mean, that's a beloved character. People think back to Fright Night, and they think of the Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent. So why? It's just so peculiar that they would just hold off on that. I don't know. I can't even think of why they would do that. Did they want to keep it as a surprise? I don't know, because anybody I talked to that was talking.
It sounds like they wanted to make the whole movie a surprise.
Yeah, I guess
I didn't see any advertising for it up until a week before it came out.
Yeah, and I've been hearing some good reviews for it. So it's why hold back? Maybe the studio wasn't confident in the film. I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's easy to say things in retrospect because, the studio's not going to know necessarily how well a movie's going to perform. But, what I was going to say is there have been so many bad remakes, you finally make a good one and no one knows about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not saying it's good because I haven't seen it, but I mean, like, everybody I've talked to says it's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen it
Eric,
either,
Eric
so.
went and saw it twice in 2 days. He said it was
Wow.
fantastic.
That's pretty good. And that's how bad marketing can kill a film. It's just that easy.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. That's nuts. And then we get a lot of really bad movies that are marketed up the woozah.
Oh yeah. I was thinking, actually, this is maybe a little off topic because I'm not really ranting about this. But I like the movie Sucker Punch.
Oh, really? Boy, we could talk about that. Did you see my review? I was a little scathing with it.
I did. Well, I don't think it's the most brilliant thing ever. I think it's a good film. And I think one of the problems with the film is I think it was marketed as a fantasy action film. And I think it should have been,
that's true.
I think it should have been marketed as a psychological thriller. Because there's plenty that they could have done with that. I mean...
Yeah.
I know they had all these cool visuals that they thought, well, we could definitely sell this on it. And unfortunately, once you get people in the theater, wanting to see that, then you realize, oh no, it's a sit and think movie. With only brief sequences of action. So people feel like, they're a little gypped, frankly. And that doesn't really lend well to people liking your movie, even if you made a good film.
Although I would make the case that it was marketed toward the demographic it should have been marketed toward.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
Because it was not a movie for women.
No.
Not even kind of. I mean, that was kind of the problem I had with it. It was, I mean, I thought it was, borderline offensive in that way.
Oh.
But
I have talked to women who like the film.
Really? Okay. All right. That's interesting. Well, I mean, I'm not, I'm not trying to go too far one direction that way, but I mean, to me, I was just sort of like, this feels like a movie about a woman that was written by a dude who likes to play video games. Like, that's just, I don't know, maybe offensive is the wrong word, but I certainly didn't suspend my disbelief in that fashion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I do understand why they would market the film that way. I mean, it would seem like a safe bet.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it seems like it didn't pay off. But we're kind of getting into the bigger picture of like marketing, and that's the thing that can make or break a film. Actually, is if you market it well.
Yeah.
I've seen films that are just brilliant that were just sold in just the wrong ways. So sometimes it's just how it goes.
Well, and it's like I've always said, trailers aren't there to tell you what a movie's about. They're there to get you to go.
Yeah, that's sometimes why, I could probably do a mini rant on this, is, they'll release a 20-second trailer and people will declare a movie horrible because of their interpretation of that 20 seconds. Even if I'm watching it and I'm interpreting something different, or I'm going, well, gee, I'd like to know what that's about, instead of, oh, I know what that's about, and it's wrong. I am a wait and see kind of guy on a lot of things.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm so quick to remind people when they immediately start being judgmental about trailers. Look, you haven't seen the movie yet. You don't really know.
Yeah.
Because you can take you're talking 20, 30 seconds, a minute of what's going to be a 2-hour movie. You can make that look like anything you want to.
Yeah.
And it's a fun exercise. People do it all the time on YouTube. I mean, making fan trailers of things, taking pieces out of a movie and making it look like something else.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah. As you can tell, I've rarely done those kind of anticipation videos.
Yeah, I avoid it in a way too. I mean, like when I talk about trailers on late night, it's mostly just, this was a trailer, go watch it.
Yeah.
Here are a couple, I don't know, sometimes I'll mention a couple things that this looks cool and this doesn't, but a lot of times when I'm talking about that stuff and people are like, oh, I don't like the new Catwoman costume, I'm very quick to point out, you don't know if that's the only costume she's going to wear. Like,
I mean,
you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, how many costumes did Bruce Wayne have in Batman Begins?
In Batman Begins, yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if they had sent out a shot like early in his ninja costume in the first 20 minutes?
By the way, there recently we're way off topic, but there was recently a great action figure that put out.
Oh, really? Oh,
it's cool.
I guess we're off topic, so. But actually, to be honest, I was kind of done with my rant about.
No, that's okay. It sprung us into another place, and I was enjoying talking about that. So anyway, I'll wrap up real quick with my rant. Manos, where are where are the letters pages we were promised from DC?
They're still there, right?
They're there every now and again. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like,
yeah, I do.
DC made this huge announcement around the beginning of the year, I think, where they said, "Hey, we're finally going to bring back our letters pages," and they finally started doing letters pages again. And lately, they've been conveniently leaving them out, and I think that has a lot to do with the reboot. Naturally, with the relaunch. What I don't like about that is that I think it would have been very cool for more of the final issues of books before they restart, and especially books that ended and aren't restarting, for the for the staff to have gotten to say some final words in those letters pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think the reboot has a lot to do with it. I don't know if we'll see the letters pages return with the reboot.
I hope so. I'm a little old school. I really like letters pages.
Me too. Well, especially if they get tons of letters going, hey, this is the most brilliant thing ever, then of course they'll be totally putting those in their books.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But
much worse is when they're nice enough to publish both.
Yeah, well, DC is doing a lot of playing down, ending all these books midstream, and there's part of the reason why they're calling it a relaunch. It's not a reboot. To sort of, smooth that out. It is, there's a couple of letters pages I've looked at where people go, oh, hey, what's going to happen, down the road in Red Robin? And, there's no down the road for Red Robin.
Right.
Right,
yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if traditionally there are letters published at the end of a final issue. I don't remember if that's been done very much or not, because I'm just like I haven't thought about it before, but
I've seen it. Okay. A lot of times, actually,
I just wish they'd done it more. I think it would have been nice. That's all I'm saying.
I've seen several comics, traditionally back when letters pages were all in every book. I remember they would sometimes put just one more letters page and summing up the books, or it would be a letter from one of the creative staff, either the editor or the writer of the series, saying, hey, this is great writing the book, I loved it, and had a lot of fun writing She-Hulk.
Yeah, at least kind of a nice letter wrapping it up.
Yeah. And that usually I would see traditionally done. So
the reason I like letters pages more than anything is especially these days with comics costing more, is it just gives you more in a book to read.
That's a good point. It is, and it's also, I enjoy hearing what other people think. And
yeah, me too.
It's nice that
it's entertaining in its own way, and I mean, I every now and again give Todd McFarlane a lot of crap, but what I liked about the early Spawns, and it's still like this, is he didn't just have letters pages; he had 3 or 4 pages of letters pages.
Yeah.
I mean, he would publish a lot of them, and he would publish some of the scathing ones. And I mean, we can talk about how he's contradictory and how he would say strange things sometimes, and well, okay, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. They were fun to read. And it took me, 10 extra minutes with a book that I spent some money on.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. I appreciate that. And,
I enjoy it.
And honestly, I'm not sure Marvel's doing as much as they used to either.
I don't think they're even doing letters pages.
At all? No, they are. I think Venom has one.
Oh.
So I know at least 1 or 2 of them do.
Oh, I haven't been reading Venom, so.
No,
I think Daredevil.
Cool.
I think Daredevil is going to have.
Did you see the end of Daredevil 2?
Yes.
They republished some of the letters from the original Daredevil 2.
Oh, that's right.
And Stan's responses to them. That was pretty cool. I like going back and reading old letters pages too. By the way, part of the reason I collect older comics is to get my hands on the letters pages.
Listen, since you're reading
great fun.
I'm glad you brought that up. Since you're reading older comics letter pages, have you come across any letters from Uncle Elvis?
Not that I can think of. Why?
Okay.
Who is that?
Growing up reading comics in the 70s and 80s, Uncle Elvis was kind of a staple in comic book letter pages. He apparently read everything, and he read both DC and Marvel. I'd see his letters as a kid in Batman books and Spider-Man and Avengers and stuff like that. And he only left the name Uncle Elvis, and he was obviously, I always imagined him to be an older fan, like, maybe, 30s or 40s or something like that. Because it was obviously not a kid.
Yeah.
And,
was he just really funny, or?
He was funny sometimes, and he was also thoughtful. I mean, he had opinions, and he would often give them. He would very rarely write small letters. It would be usually a couple of paragraphs in each letter column that he'd write. And I saw his letters for years in comics, and I don't know what ever became of him.
Yeah, we'll have to Google him.
Well, definitely, he may be. You may be able to find him Google-wise. But yeah, if you're still digging through old comics, you will probably come across him.
Yeah, I'll look for that. Recently, what I've been picking up have been like mid-60s stuff. So yeah, I haven't, but I'll look at some of my other stuff and see.
Oh, I only know.
See if I can find some. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably look for him in the mid-70s.
Right.
On up.
Well, Manos, we're well out of time, so we will have to bid our listeners farewell.
Sure.
And everybody, thanks very much for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. We'll be back with you with another podcast next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am the real Manos.
We'll see you next time.